My parents gave my entire $500K inheritance to my deadbeat sister after I supported them for years. So I cut contact and they're begging me now. I'm a 28-year-old guy and I've always been the one holding the damn line, emotionally, financially, you name it. When I was 13, I got my first job mowing lawns because my parents couldn't afford groceries that month. They didn't ask me to. No one had to. I just saw the gaps and filled them. That's been my role for as long as I can remember. The fixer, the buffer, the one who quietly handled the mess so nobody else had to look down and see how broken things really were. My sister, Chloe, is 3 years younger and could light up a room. Everyone loved her. Teachers, relatives, random people in line at the grocery store. She had that magnetic, chaotic energy that made people want to save her. She never kept a job for more than 6 months, but somehow there was always a parachute waiting, usually me. She'd call crying at 2 a.m. about bad vibes at work, and by sunrise, I'd Venmo her rent. Meanwhile, I was working double shifts and skipping meals to make the math work. I paid off our parents' car. I fixed the leaky roof myself one winter while Chloe was off on some yoga retreat she couldn't afford. I even funneled part of my paycheck into their retirement fund because Mom kept saying, "It's not like we'll have Social Security." I believed in duty, in showing up, even when nobody clapped for it. And still, they treated her like she was made of gold, and I was just some dependable mule they could ride till the legs gave out. They never said it outright, but you could hear it between the silences. She's just finding herself. But I was the one they found when something broke. I thought I'd accepted that. I thought I'd made peace with being the steady one. But what they did next? It shattered everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and blood. It started with a medical scare. Dad had chest pains, and Mom called me in tears at 2 a.m., panicking about hospital bills and their mortgage being past due. I didn't even think. I wired them $15,000 the next morning. No questions, no conditions, just instinct. That's who I was to them, the emergency fund with a pulse. They thanked me, sure, said I saved their home, called me a blessing. And for a while, I held on to that feeling like it meant something, that maybe they saw me now, not just what I gave. But 3 months later, during a casual dinner at Mom's, Chloe let something slip. She laughed over wine and said, "That candle business would have been huge if people weren't so anti-fragrance." And I blinked, because I had no idea she even had a candle business. That's when Mom looked uncomfortable and Dad cleared his throat and muttered, "We helped her get it started," with what was left. What was left of my $15,000. Turns out they had given half of it to Chloe because she had a dream, and dreams apparently mattered more than hospital bills or, the actual person who gave them the money in the first place. I didn't yell, I didn't make a scene, I just said, "Why didn't you tell me?" And Mom had the audacity to say, "We didn't want to burden you with the decision." Chloe chimed in, flipping her hair like I was being ridiculous. "You're obsessed with money. You should be happy to help your family." That night I left early, heart pounding, something bitter blooming in my chest. I told myself I'd stop giving so much, start setting boundaries, but guilt is a hell of a drug, and family knows exactly how to dose it. I should have walked away then, but I didn't know I was standing on the edge of something much darker. My grandfather passed away last year, and it hit harder than I expected. He was the only person in my life who looked me in the eye and really saw me. Not just what I did for everyone, but who I was underneath all that responsibility. Growing up, he'd call me the quiet soldier. He taught me how to fix things with my hands, how to speak less and mean more. And sometimes when the house got too loud or Chloe's chaos was too much, I'd sneak over to his place and just exist, no performance, no expectations. At the funeral, I couldn't speak. I didn't trust my voice not to crack. But a week later, his lawyer reached out and asked if we could talk privately. I thought maybe it was something small, a tool set, a few of his old books. But when I sat across from him in that quiet office, he handed me a sealed envelope and said, "Your grandfather left you something significant." Inside was a letter written in his neat, slanted handwriting. It said, "For the one who gave without ever asking in return. I know you'll use this well." Attached was documentation for a $500,000 inheritance, straight to me. I couldn't breathe. Not because of the money, but because someone had finally acknowledged the weight I'd carried all these years. He saw me. He believed I was worth investing in. I went home and sat in my car for 20 minutes, just holding that letter to my chest. I told myself I'd honor him by using it the right way, a down payment on a house, maybe finally launch that small repair business I'd dreamed about. Stability, freedom, a life of my own. But the thing about peace, in my family, it never lasts long. 2 weeks after that meeting with the lawyer, I called to ask when the funds would officially be released. He paused, flipping through paperwork, and said something that made my stomach turn. "I thought you already received the money. It was transferred to the joint account you set up with your parents." I remember staring at my phone like it had just spoken in a different language. I didn't set up any joint account," I said. And his voice shifted, lower, more careful. "You're listed as an account holder, but if it wasn't you, we may have a problem." I barely remember the drive to my parents' house. My heart was pounding so loud it drowned out the radio, the traffic, even my own thoughts. When I walked in, Mom was folding laundry and Dad was sipping tea like nothing had happened. "Where's Chloe?" was the first thing out of my mouth. They looked at each other, and I could feel it. Like the air had dropped 10 degrees. Finally, Dad sighed and said, "Look, it's not what you think." Mom added, "She needed a leg up, and we knew you'd overthink it, so we just made the call for you." That's when I saw the paperwork on the dining table. Bank documents with my name digitally signed. A forged signature, a fake account, and $500,000 gone. "She needs it more than you," Mom said gently, like she was soothing a child. "You're doing fine. You've always been the stable one." As if that justified stealing everything my grandfather left me. I didn't speak. I couldn't. It was like watching someone take a knife to everything good left in you and smile while they did it. And Chloe, she didn't even bother showing up. They sat me down like I was some child throwing a tantrum. Dad started with that calm, patronizing tone he always used when I didn't take Chloe's side. "You have to understand, your sister has potential. She just needs a boost." And then Mom chimed in like they were rehearsing it. "You've always been the hard-working one. Money like that could make you complacent." I stared at them, stunned. Not because they said it, but because they actually believed it. Like giving me what was already mine would somehow ruin me. I asked, what did she even do with it? They said it like it was no big deal, like I was being ridiculous for even asking. Chloe had used my inheritance to pay off 5 credit cards, lease a brand new luxury SUV to look professional, and book a month-long retreat in Bali to find her inner boss. My grandfather left me that money because he believed in me. Because I earned it with years of sacrifice, loyalty, and silent service, and they handed it off like it was pocket change for a reckless influencer. I felt my hands trembling, my chest tightening. Not from anger, at least not just that, it was grief. Grief for a version of my family I'd still believed in, even after all the warning signs. I said, "Do you even feel guilty?" And I swear, Mom looked offended. She placed a hand on mine and said softly, "You'll understand when you're a parent." Like robbing your own child of a future was somehow noble if it was for the other child. That's when it happened. Something cracked open inside me. Not rage, not sadness, just a cold, quiet clarity. They were never going to choose me. I didn't even go home that night. I drove straight from their house to my grandfather's lawyer's office, heart hammering, hands ice cold on the wheel. He took one look at my face and said, "Tell me everything." So I did. Every sick detail, the fake joint account, the forged signature, the money they handed off to Chloe like it was a gift basket. He pulled up the documents and confirmed what I feared. The digital authorization had been submitted from an IP address linked to my parents' house. My digital signature had been copied, likely from old legal files I'd signed for them in the past. It was fraud, plain and simple, and even though it tore something in me to do it, we filed a police report that same day. The remaining funds, what little hadn't already been spent, were frozen within 24 hours. We moved quickly before Chloe could drain what was left on her next impulsive adventure. The officer who called to question my parents told me later they were outraged. They said I was vindictive, cruel, twisting the family apart. My dad even claimed I was punishing them for trying to help my sister succeed. Not once did they acknowledge the theft. Not once did they say sorry. In their eyes, I was the traitor for refusing to be their doormat anymore. But something had changed in me. For the first time, I didn't care about their approval or guilt trips. I wasn't chasing love through sacrifice anymore. I was done handing over my peace like it was theirs to borrow. Let them spin their stories. Let them lie. Because this time, I was writing the ending. It didn't take long for the smear campaign to begin. 2 days after the police report was filed, Chloe dropped a novella into our extended family group chat. It started with, "I never wanted to say this, but I can't stay silent while my own brother tries to destroy our family." And it spiraled from there. She painted herself as the wounded little sister just trying to build a future, and me as the bitter, money-hungry brother who couldn't stand to see her shine. Her exact words were, "Some people would rather see you fail than admit you've outgrown them." I stared at the message for 10 minutes before I could even move. Then the replies started rolling in. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions. Aunt Maggie called me cold. Uncle Roy said I should be ashamed. One distant relative wrote, "Dragging blood through the mud is disgusting. Families forgive." Not one of them asked for my side. Not one of them paused to consider that maybe Chloe was lying through her perfect teeth. They bought the performance wholesale, because they always had. She's the entertainer, the golden girl, the one with spark. I'm just the guy who pays bills and causes problems by asking questions. Only one person broke the pattern. My cousin Jenna sent me a private DM that just said, "I believe you." Those 3 words felt like someone throwing a rope to a drowning man. It was the first time I truly understood how deep the rot went. Not just in Chloe, but in all of them. This wasn't just a betrayal of money. It was a betrayal of reality, the version of me they never cared to see. I left the chat without saying a word. Then I blocked every last one of them. A few weeks passed. I was trying to put distance between myself and the chaos, focusing on work, therapy, anything that didn't involve betrayal. Then my phone rang. It was the lawyer again. His voice had that cautious tone people use before dropping a bomb. "I thought you should hear this from me directly," he said. Turns out Chloe hadn't just misused the inheritance. She had lied. About everything. She wasn't broke. She hadn't needed the money to build her future or get on her feet. According to a whistleblower report and flagged financial activity, Chloe had been funneling money into a crypto pump and dump scheme. A sketchy Telegram group, fake white papers, influencer shills, the whole operation. She gambled with my grandfather's gift like it was Monopoly money. And worst of all, she lost almost all of it. The police were now expanding the investigation, because this wasn't just family drama anymore. It was financial fraud on record. She could face charges, possibly prison time. My parents? Still blind, still loyal. When I tried to confront them with the new information, Mom cried and said, "She was just trying to find her way. At least she tried to do something big." Dad added, "Everyone makes mistakes." No apology, no remorse, just excuses and revisionist history. They didn't want truth. They wanted a version of reality where Chloe was still the star and I was still the wallet. That's when something in me finally snapped, clean and quiet. I told them not to contact me again, not for explanations, holidays, or emergencies. I changed my number, blocked their emails, shut every digital door they could walk through. Because when people show you their love comes with a price tag, the only thing left to do is walk away before you sell your soul, too. I thought cutting contact would bring peace. Instead, it opened a silence I wasn't prepared for. The kind that seeps into your bones at night and doesn't leave by morning. I stopped sleeping, really sleeping. I'd drift off for an hour or two, only to wake up grinding my teeth, heart racing, jaw locked so tight I couldn't chew properly. The stress wrapped around my body like a fist. I had been in escrow to buy my first home. A small fixer-upper with a backyard and an old brick fireplace. Something my grandfather would have loved. I pulled out of the deal. I couldn't focus. I couldn't trust myself to build anything when everything I believed in had just collapsed. Even my boss noticed I was slipping, coming in late, missing details. I told him I was fine. I lied. My therapist said I wasn't just mourning the money, I was grieving the illusion of family. The fantasy that if I just worked hard enough, gave enough, proved myself enough, they'd finally see me. Turns out I'd been performing love like it was a job, one with no paycheck and no end. And birthdays came and went in that silence. No calls, no texts, not even a lazy emoji from Mom. Just nothing. You'd think that would have made it easier, cleaner. But it didn't. It hurt more than I ever imagined. To realize that walking away didn't make them reach for me. They just let me go. Quietly. Like I was never anything more than useful. I spent so many years thinking love meant sacrifice. Turns out, I was the only one bleeding in that exchange. I packed everything I owned into a U-Haul and drove across 3 states with no goodbye, no forwarding address, and no plan beyond a way. New city, new job, new number. No family photos made the trip, just my grandfather's letter and a toolbox he gave me when I turned 18. I found a small apartment above a bakery, where the smell of fresh bread drifted through the walls each morning. The first few weeks, the quiet felt like exile. But eventually, it started to feel like peace. I wasn't being pulled into midnight drama, no guilt trip phone calls, no requests for money with fake apologies attached. My days were simple, steady. I'd go to work, come home, cook for one, and sleep without grinding my teeth. And slowly, I started saving again, not for anyone else, not out of obligation, just for me. Every deposit into that account felt like reclaiming a piece of myself they never saw as mine to keep. Then came her. We met at a hardware store, reaching for the same can of paint. She was kind in a quiet, steady way. Nothing performative, nothing loud. We talked, then we kept talking. There was no need to impress or apologize for who I was. She didn't care how much I made or what I gave, only that I was there, real and present. I started making friends who didn't ask for favors before learning my last name. People who didn't think boundaries were betrayal, and for the first time in years, I felt seen without having to bleed for it. This wasn't revenge. There were no fireworks or dramatic endings, but it was healing. And maybe that was the better ending all along. 6 months of silence. And then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I almost deleted it without listening, but something in my gut told me to press play. It was my mother, her voice wrecked and raw, barely holding together between gasps. "Chloe's in trouble," she sobbed. "Please, we don't know what to do. We need you." I didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there in my living room, staring at nothing. Apparently, the fraud case had gone public. Articles were circulating. Her name was trending. Our name. My parents' house had been listed as collateral in Chloe's legal filings, and now they were staring down legal fees and possible foreclosure. She'd dragged them down with her, and now, like clockwork, they wanted me to clean it all up. She said the words like she was offering me a favor. "Just a loan, 50,000, just until this all passes." As if trust still existed between us. As if that money wasn't a knife the last time I gave it. I didn't respond, not with a text, not with a call, not with a single breath. A week later, I got an email. No subject line, no real message. Just a photo of my old childhood dog, the one I left behind when I moved, and a line beneath it that read, "Please don't abandon us." But the truth is, I was abandoned long ago, not when they stole the money, not when they chose Chloe again and again. I was abandoned the first time I cried in front of them, and they told me to be strong. And I finally realized, strength doesn't mean staying. Sometimes it means not picking up the phone. It came in a pale blue envelope, my name written in shaky cursive I hadn't seen in over half a year. No return address, but I didn't need one. I knew that handwriting. It was the same hand that used to pack my lunch, then later forged my digital signature to steal my future. For a moment I considered tossing it unopened, but curiosity won out, just enough to peel it open halfway. Inside were 4 pages of thin-lined stationery, packed with overwritten guilt and empty platitudes. They said they didn't think it would blow up this way, that Chloe had been surrounded by bad influences online and wasn't thinking clearly, that they were just trying to help her succeed the only way they knew how. They never said, "We were wrong," not once. They didn't own the theft. They didn't acknowledge the years of gaslighting or the silence they gave me on every birthday since I cut ties. It wasn't a letter of apology. It was a defense statement dressed in nostalgia. They even had the gall to ask me for a favor at the end. If there's any part of you that still loves your sister, please consider writing a character reference for her court hearing next month. I stood there holding those pages like they might catch fire, and maybe they did, just not literally. I didn't finish reading. I didn't respond. I slid the letter back into the envelope and fed it into my shredder, slow and steady. Let them hear the teeth grinding as it tore through their rewritten history. Because if they were hoping guilt might still control me, they forgot something important. I don't belong to them anymore. It took me almost a year to go back. I kept finding excuses, work, weather, time. But deep down, I wasn't sure I could stand there and not fall apart. But one quiet Sunday morning, I got in my car before sunrise and drove 3 hours to the old cemetery near the church he used to take me to. No music, just silence and the hum of tires on pavement. When I arrived, dew clung to the grass, and birds were just starting to stir in the trees overhead. I stood there for a long time before I said anything. His headstone was simple, just his name, the dates, and a short line beneath. A man who gave more than he took. I crouched down and placed a folded note at the base. Nothing dramatic, just a few words I needed him to hear. I kept my promise. Thank you for seeing me. Then I told him everything, out loud, not just about the stolen inheritance, but about the silence that followed, the breaking point, the way I finally stood up and walked away. I told him how I didn't rescue them this time, how I let the chips fall where they deserved to, how I finally started building a life that wasn't built on guilt or obligation. And somewhere between my words and the breeze that moved through the trees, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness for them, but something else. A release. For the first time in months, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel broken. I just felt free. And somehow I knew he would have been proud of that most of all. It started with a call from an unknown number. I ignored it at first, like I always do now. But the voicemail came through, my father's voice, ragged and low. "Please," he said, "just talk to me, in person, one last time." There was no anger in his voice, no accusations, just something quiet, something broken. And against my better judgment, I agreed to meet. He showed up outside my workplace the next day, standing near the parking lot like a ghost. He looked thinner, older, like the years had finally caught up with him. When I walked out, he didn't rush me, just stood there, holding his hands together like he wasn't sure what to do with them anymore. "I know you don't owe us anything," he started. Then his voice cracked as he added, "We lost everything, but we lost you first." I didn't say much. I let him talk. Let him empty whatever was left in his chest. He spoke about Chloe's trial dates, the house they might lose, the nights Mom still cries, but none of it hit like it used to, because somewhere along the way their pain had stopped being mine to carry. In the end, he looked at me and asked, "Do you think we could ever start over?" And I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe maybe people change when the world gives them no other option. But all I could say was, maybe, but not with lies. He nodded like he understood, and then, quietly, he walked away. That was the last time I saw him. One night, after weeks of silence, I sat down at my kitchen table and wrote a letter I never planned to mail. No envelope, no stamp, just ink and truth. I started with the words I never thought I'd write. "I forgive you." Not because they earned it, not because they apologized, but because I was tired of bleeding from wounds they didn't even remember giving me. I needed to stop dragging their weight through my new life like a rusted anchor. I wrote, "I forgive you for making me the responsible one, and then resenting me for it. I forgive you for the silence on my birthdays, the betrayals you dressed in love, and the years you mistook my sacrifice for strength." And then I wrote the hardest line of all. "I forgive you, but I don't want you in my life." Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't a key to a door you open again. It's a lock. One you turn when you're finally ready to keep what's broken out. I've built something better now. A home with laughter that doesn't carry hidden debts. A partner who doesn't flinch when I speak about the past. Friends who ask how I'm doing and stay to hear the answer. They might never understand what they destroyed. They might spend the rest of their lives telling a version of the story where I was the villain, the ungrateful son, the one who walked away. Let them. Because I know the truth, and more importantly, I know peace. I folded the letter, tucked it into a drawer I never open, and turned out the light. Some things are better left unsent. Today, I wake up without checking my phone for missed calls or guilt-laced messages. There's no pit in my stomach wondering if someone needs saving, no quiet dread curling in my chest. I just wake up. I make coffee, step out onto the porch of a home I bought with my own hands, and listen to the world as it is, quiet, steady, mine. The sunlight hits different when it isn't filtered through obligation. Peace doesn't knock. It settles. My partner's inside, still asleep. They make me laugh without conditions. They know the whole story, not just the dramatic headlines, but the bruises beneath, and they never flinch. My friends come over on weekends, not because they need a favor, but because they want to be around. They bring snacks, stories, and something I never knew I was missing. Belonging. The kind that doesn't ask for proof. Chloe still has court dates ahead. From what I've heard, the charges stuck harder than anyone expected. My parents are living with a cousin now, downsized, quiet, off the map. I don't keep tabs, I don't check social media. But sometimes word trickles through the cracks. And when it does, I don't feel smug, I don't feel rage, I just feel distance. Clean, unbothered distance, like watching the end of a movie you've already cried through and survived. They chose her, again and again, but I finally chose me. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's sacred. This is what peace looks like. It's not loud, it doesn't beg to be seen, it's coffee on a quiet morning. It's the sound of a heart no longer breaking. It's freedom that doesn't need forgiveness.